Hi, I'm Jennifer from Frontline DIY. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about this DIY pantry. I'm going to go more into detail about what I did and the steps I took to get this done. So let's get started. Pantry was my first big DIY home project. It'll probably be the most memorable project for me because it's actually the project I did while on maternity leave when I was really battling postpartum depression. This is the project that led me to realize how therapeutic this creative outlet truly was for me. Just really took my love for DIY to a whole new level, knowing that I could do something like this after just a few months of picking up a power tool. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I took. This pantry was a completely blank slate. There was nothing in here. It was completely empty. It was like that when we bought the house and we had been planning to customize it and have a contractor do it, but it was going to be about $5,000 to do what we wanted. So we put that on hold. Then we had a really bad leak where all the water lines in our house were just failing and we had to get the entire house repiped. One of the big leaks happened in here. So there was holes all over because a lot of holes had to be made by the plumber to access the water lines in order to replace them. So we do still have several holes around our house and we're just kind of fixing things up little by little as we go. Because of course the insurance money is never enough to cover those types of things. But anyway, so the first part of the pantry that I worked on was actually the ceiling. It was covered in popcorn and we all love popcorn ceilings. I wanted to get rid of it. So I scraped the popcorn off. In hindsight now, I would have skipped that altogether and just gone over it with the shiplap. I didn't know I was going to use shiplap at first, so I didn't do it that way. I scraped the popcorn, quickly realized after that that I was not going to be able to get a smooth finish because I did not have the skills to do that. In my recent project with the laundry room, I didn't even bother the mess of scraping the popcorn. I went right over top of the popcorn with the tongue and groove planked boards. This ceiling is primed MDF shiplap boards that I used, and I painted the boards before installing them to make things easier. If it was just going to be white, I would have just put them up and painted after. But getting into these grooves is really hard if you paint after, unless you use a paint sprayer. And I didn't want to deal with like having to tape up and the overspray and all that. So I just painted them before install. I had marked the studs on the ceiling prior to installing the boards. I nailed them with my brad nailer into the studs using like 1.5 to 2 inch nails, I believe. Some people use liquid nails, adhesive, construction adhesive, and glue the boards. I didn't do that because it damages the drywall if you ever want to take it down. It was just easier for me to just use the nails. For this part of the ceiling, I did use construction adhesive because the studs were kind of weird. This here is actually a funny little mistake. This was me trying to get creative and create a niche. I didn't know what I was gonna do with it. I thought there was gonna be more depth and I could like use it as extra space. I did not, in my novice little self, realize that this was actually the bottom of my stairs, which is why this is sloped like that. So I go cutting into the drywall. I cut too much and then I realized like, oh, there's light coming through and I can see into my entryway. So what I basically had done was cut all the way through the side of my stairs and could then see to the other side of my house. Needless to say, my husband was not happy And like I said, this is when I first started DIY. So it's like, are you gonna be able to fix that? Anyway, I figured it out, I fixed it. And so the little corner up here that's painted black, that's actually drywall. That's where the hole was that you could see all the way through to the other side. This is the wooden side of the actual stairs. So it was the drywall right above the stairs where the hole was that you could see through. Anyway, I fixed it all up. I trimmed it nicely. And then my husband's like, what a waste of time. What are you gonna put up there? And I was like, I'll find something to do with it. And so I found these cute little glass holder, rack, whatever. And I put that up there and just made it like a little decorative feature. And I just really feel like it adds a lot of impact to the room. So I'm happy with the mistake that I made. And that's that. So that was not intentional, but that's what happens in DIY. You're gonna make mistakes and you just figure it out. It's a series of problem solving after problem solving after problem solving. And that's how you learn and get better for next time. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. After the ceiling was finished, I moved on to the cabinets. These are actually wall cabinets because I didn't want standard base cabinets are 24 inches deep, and that would have come out to about here and just really took up too much space in the pantry. So I decided to use wall cabinets instead. So then I had to create a base for them because they're not meant to be used as base cabinets. I used 2x3s, I created a base, and then I put the wall cabinets on top. I wanted to have two 24-inch cabinets, one for here and one for here. However, they were out of stock at Home Depot and I didn't want to wait, so I just did 12-inch cabinets. So this is actually two separate cabinets that are just attached, that I attached them to make it look like one. And same thing here. So I have a total of 4 12-inch cabinets to get what I wanted. In hindsight, I wish I would have waited for the 24-inch cabinets because this like limits the space inside, so it's very narrow. And if I had had a 24-inch cabinet, it would have been wider inside, but I didn't take any of that into account. I was just thinking about what it would look like on the outside. In hindsight, I would have waited for the 24-inch. I left space on the end here on purpose. This was intentional because I knew I was going to want to create this little like wine rack. And so I used like scraps towards the end of the project and just kind of created this little nook to store wine. Up in the corner, I left here intentionally as well, and I used scraps again to create like some shelves in there. And that's where I like store extra drinks, bottled water, Gatorades, juice boxes for the kids, things like that, cans of soda. These cabinets were unfinished. They were just, you know, the brown unfinished cabinets from Home Depot. So I did have to paint them. And this is Sherwin-Williams Pure White in a satin finish. I don't know if I told you guys before, but the ceiling and this wall is Sherwin-Williams Black Magic in a matte finish. So with the ceiling, you don't want to use a shiny type of finish because of the way that it reflects, and so always want to have a flat finish on your ceiling, just a tip. For the shelving here, what I did was I created a frame out of 2x2s. So I used 2x2s and I screwed them together and created like a frame. I attached the frame to the studs in the walls. After I created the frame, I put 3/4 inch plywood on top as the top of the shelf, and then I used 1/2 inch plywood on the bottom as the bottom surface of the shelf. And then for the front, had I not put a face on the front, you would have seen the unfinished plywood and the 2x2 sandwich between them, and so it wouldn't have looked nice. So I put a 1x3 select pine board on the front. I chose select pine because I knew that I was going to stain it, and so I wanted it to look nice. If I was just going to be painting it or something like that, I would have used the cheapest that I could find. Select pine's a little bit more expensive, but I went with that since I knew I was going to stain. I then painted the shelves white, Sherwin-Williams Pure White, but I left the fronts natural because I was going to stain them, and I used Early American was the stain color that I used on these. The plywood is nailed into, I didn't use screws, I used nails to nail it into the frame. So the frame is screwed into the studs, the plywood is nailed on top and bottom, and the fronts nailed on as well. And then I just went through, filled all the nail holes and sanded and made it look nice. With the shelves, I did 3 shelves on this wall. This wall I only did 2 shelves because of the sloped ceiling. I wasn't going to be able to add a 3rd shelf in there, but I wanted to have the extra space at least on this side for storage. For this part of the pantry right here, this is actually a Billy bookcase from IKEA. I wanted to have somewhere to store my small appliances, like my little rice cooker, the blender, things like that. So basically an appliance garage. But again, it was one of my first big projects. I didn't know how to make cabinets or anything like that. So I needed to use as many things as I could just buy and make look custom. So this is like a $40 bookshelf at IKEA, the Billy bookcase. I installed that. I did not put it on a base like I did the cabinets. I put it alone. I added some 1x2 trim to the front to make it look thicker and more custom and less IKEA. So I added the trim to the front, and then on the inside, I used spackle to fill these holes for the shelf pins because I just don't like the way that they look. And if I ever need to move the shelves around, it's easy to just kind of dig out the spackle and put in the shelf pins to move the shelves around. I had them where I wanted them. It wasn't a big deal for me. I then added baseboard to the bottom of it so that everything would kind of look built in and cohesive. Just a little IKEA hack for you guys. For the countertop, I used IKEA butcher block because it was the cheapest I could find, and I liked the look of it and the color. It comes in different colors. I believe this is the Carlby one. I'm not sure, but in the description, I'll make sure I link the right product. It came 25 by 96 is what the piece came as that I bought. I had to rip it down with my circular saw to get the width that I needed. And then I did still kind of have some left over, but it's been great. It's already stained and finished, but you can stain it and do all of that as well. If you want a different color, you can sand it and stain it. It's already finished. I didn't have to do anything to it. It was very easy to just cut and install. I did not do a mitered cut in the corner with the shelves. I did do miter cuts of the plywood to get that angle. Here, I just made this piece is longer than this one, and they just butt up together kind of like this. You can't really see the seam that much. It doesn't bother me, and I knew I was gonna have my little coffee stuff in this corner. So I keep all of my little coffee supplies here, my brown sugar, my little K-cups for my coffee, and then I have the Keurig right here, right beside it. I'm the only person in my house that drinks coffee, so using a coffee pot is kind of a waste for us. So I just use the Keurig, and I have my little station here. That's it for that section. And this is kind of just like a mini bar beverage area. That was the point. I wanted a coffee bar, mini bar area, and then an area to store pantry items and food and all of that. Then for the last step, I installed this backsplash. So I have this same backsplash in my kitchen, and I had a lot of it left over. Just went ahead and put it in here since it wasn't going to be an expense or anything I had to buy. I actually used this adhesive tile mat called Muselbound, and instead of using the traditional mortar and all of that to install the backsplash. So it's an adhesive mat, and the backsplash sticks to it. It's in there very good. It's a great product. I love it, and have used it again now in my laundry room. It's very beginner friendly, so if you've never installed backsplash, I definitely recommend trying with the adhesive tile mat. It's much easier and definitely more of a beginner friendly way to install any type of backsplash tile. Then I used a black grout. You do still have to grout it even when you use the adhesive tile mat, but the good thing about it is that you don't have to wait to grout. You can grout right away. When you use traditional mortar to install backsplash, you have to let that set for I think like at least 24 to 48 hours before you can grout. So that was one of the benefits of having the adhesive tile mat. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and that all your questions about the pantry were answered. But if not, please leave me a question in the comments, or just if you want to give any feedback. any future videos you want to see. I'm here for all of it. Leave me feedback in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. I'm gonna make sure I link everything too. If I've missed anything, you know, just ask and I'll add it on later. That's it for today. Thank you for following along as I swap out my stethoscope for a drill, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.